we felt that at the end of a century after emancipation, at least after the proclamation, you and I know that we still are fighting for emancipation, that there ought to be, on the other end of Lincoln Park, a memorial recognizing the contribution that black people, men and women, have made in American life. And the most fitting symbol for that was Mary McLeod Bethune. Here was a woman who had been born of slave parents, and yet she rose to be an advisor to presidents, four presidents of the United States. The National Council of Negro Women, which was founded in 1935 by Mary McLeod Bethune, had a major role in trying to help women join hands across many different lines, the educated and the not educated, the woman who had opportunity and the woman who was denied it. All of us somehow, as Mrs. Bethune put it, if we were black, we were outside of America's mainstream of opportunity, influence, and power. And that's why she had organized the National Council of Negro Women. And when we were looking towards the first century since the Emancipation Proclamation, we conceived the idea of erecting in our nation's capital the first memorial to a black American. This is a very significant thing because Washington, D.C. was laid out by a black man, Benjamin Banneker. And there are memorials and other things that recognize contributions of many different people, but not a single one to a black American. And we, therefore, found that in Lincoln Park, which is in Washington, near the Capitol Mall, that there is a monument of Mr. Lincoln with a slave with a broken chain, and the slave is at Mr. Lincoln's knee. That memorial is called the Emancipation, founded and served as president and founder of a 4-year accredited college. She had also organized the National Council of Negro Women in 1935. And so we took...
Go by June 1st?
Oh, I'm confident, yes. I'm confident. I think that the dinner that is being given here tomorrow night is kind of a fresh start, a new beginning, a strengthening. It's a call to all of the people who believe that the contribution of black people needs to be recognized. And I think that people will contribute.
What are the major hurdles you have to face between now and June 1st?
One of the hurdles is that it is a hard thing for people to stay by a goal. It's much easier to give up when you hit the first difficulty, and we've faced many. I can't tell you what we had to go through to get this through the Congress. And some of the people who have been engaged in raising the funds have no way of even understanding how complex it is to do something as a private woman's organization with the federal government. And all of the steps that it has taken for us to get the Fine Arts Commission to give us not an approval, but a unanimous approval. We went through the same racist attitudes that you find with everything else, because when we first started, there were some congressmen who called us up and said, "Why do you want to have a memorial in Lincoln Park? Why don't you put a plaque on a fountain up at Howard University and call it in honor of Mrs. Bethune?" Because they didn't see that Mrs. Bethune had already built her own monument. She didn't need us to build one. We needed one so that our children and people of the future would recognize that black people have made a contribution in American life. And we were using Mrs. Bethune as a symbol. It would have been a disgrace to have put a simple plaque up at Howard University naming Mrs. Bethune when Mrs. Bethune already had a 4-year college which she had established. And I only cite that because that's one of the nicest illustrations of the kinds of hurdles we had to overcome because the sentiment had not been established. But when you ask me, will we make it? I say yes, because I sense a new realization on the part of black people that they will not be described just as problems,